Let's do question 5 of this exam paper. It says in the diagram below, f of x is a over x plus p plus q. So that's the standard form of the hyperbola. And then the asymptotes of f intersects at -3 and 1. So there's -3 and 1. And f cuts the x-axis at -5. So there, that's the x-intercept of the hyperbola. So let's quickly look at the asymptotes. So the x value is -3. So this line over there, that line is called x is equal to -3. And then the y value, which is that line, the horizontal asymptote is called y is equal to that number over there, -1. Okay, so let's look at our questions. 5.1 says, write down the values of P and Q. Okay, so our P and our Q refers to our asymptotes. So this P over there, that P refers to the vertical asymptote. So at the moment, it's a plus P. So if the vertical asymptote is a -3, then there should be a plus in the equation. So our P is equal to 3. So let's just check if this is 3. Yes, then the asymptote is x is equal to -3. So that's right. Okay, and then our q over here, this q refers to the horizontal asymptote. So it's this line here. So that line q is whatever that number is, not the opposite. So this is -1. Okay, so that was for 2 marks, 1, 2. Okay, next question 5.2 says, determine the value of a. So now we need that a over there. So to get that a, we first write our equation down. So a over x plus 3, because remember we worked out that p, and then -1 because we worked out q. So now we're going to sub in a point on the hyperbola. So we're going to sub, I'm going to use this point. It's on the hyperbola, it's -5 and 0. So my y becomes 0 and my x becomes -5. So I'm doing that. Now I'm taking the 1 over first. So this becomes a +1, a over. Then you can simplify this, That is -2. You cross multiply. This times 1 is -2a. So a is -2. So there we solve for a. So let's see how do they mark this question. So for substituting a point, you get that mark. Then first for putting in the P and the Q that you got there. Then for subbing in and then for the answer. That is how you will get 3 marks. Okay, 5.3 says, hence or otherwise calculate the y-intercept of f. So for the y-intercept, we let x be 0. So we're going to let x equal 0. So let's write our equation down. So this is now -2, x plus 3, and then -1. That's the equation. And now we're going to make this x 0. So y is equal to this, 0 plus 3 minus 1. You can put all of that in your calculator, and you should get your y value to be -5 over 2. So my y-intercept is 0 and -5 over 2. So let's see how did they mark this question. For making x 0, so that's a mark, and then for your answer. That was a 2-mark question. Okay, our next question is 5.4, and it says, write down the domain of f. So the domain of a hyperbola is always x is an element of a real number. So x can be anything, but x cannot be the asymptote. So this vertical asymptote, x cannot be -3. Okay, and this was a 2-mark question. So 1 mark and 1 mark for that. 5.5, let's go on. Determine the line of symmetry. So that's the axis of symmetry with a negative gradient in the form y is equal to mx plus c. So now, many ways to do this, But first, I'm going to write my equation down. Oh, this was -1. Then to get the axis of symmetry with a negative gradient, you write y is equal to minus because it's a negative gradient. Then you're going to put this whole thing in brackets. So not a fraction, just the denominator. You take it just like that. Take it just like that and say -1. Now remove the brackets. So this minus 1 comes from this minus 1, eh? So now you just remove the brackets. This is negative x. This is minus 3 minus 1. Add the like terms, negative x minus 4. And that's the axis of symmetry with a negative gradient. Here you get a mark for your gradient and that y-intercept over there. And that's a 2-mark question, eh? Our next question is 5.6 and it says, for which values of x is f of x greater than or equal to 0? Okay, so let's write 5.6. Where is f of x greater than or equal to 0? So because there's a 0 in the question, we are looking at the x-intercepts. Eh? This function only has one x-intercept. It's this one over here. So I'm doing a number line for you. And on my number line, I have the x-intercept. And I must always include the asymptote. So my asymptote is negative 3. Okay, so now I'm going to ask myself, what happens here? What happens there? What happens there? And my question is, because there's a 0 involved, that 0 refers to the x-axis. So I'm going to highlight the x-axis. And then I'm going to move on the hyperbola now. So I'm going to go from left to right. So I'm going to go and I stop there. And I'm asking myself, is the hyperbola above or below the x-axis? It's below. So it's a minus over here. It's a minus over here. It's below. Then from here onwards, is it above or below the x-axis? Is it above the yellow line or below? It's above. So here I'm going to say it's above. Now after the asymptote, this is the asymptote. So after the asymptote, from left to right, let's do that. So from here onwards, is it above or below the x-axis? It is below the yellow line. So this is below. Okay, so we've done the number line. Now, do you see this greater than or equal to? It means I only look for the plus signs. So I have a plus here. There's the plus. So I'm going to write my answer like this. X is between negative 5 and 3. And because the question has an equal sign, you see that equal sign, it's there. I also have equal signs. But the 3 can't have an equal sign. This negative 3, sorry. So this is negative 3. This negative 3 can't have an equal sign because negative 3 is an asymptote. So because it's an asymptote, it can't have an equal sign. So I take it away. And that is my final answer. And that is for 2 marks. You only get a mark for the answer that is right. So equal sign here, no equal sign there. Okay, 5.7 says, describe the transformation from F to G if G is this. Okay, so something happened to F and now it looks like this. This is now called G. So okay, I'm going to write F down and this is now G. And now they ask you to describe the transformation. So let's see if we can figure out what happened from there to there. So the first thing I notice is that this negative 2 is now a positive 2, okay? And this negative 1 is a positive 1. So all the signs changed. The signs of the fraction changed. So there was a negative in front, now there's a positive. And the signs of the asymptotes, the horizontal asymptote, that also changed. If all the signs change, the graph is reflected in the x-axis. If all the signs change, reflected in the x-axis. So I'm going to take this and quickly reflect that. So if you reflect that, this is now a positive, this stays the same, and this becomes a positive. Okay, so I have this so far, but this still doesn't look like that. So how did I get from this to that? So this stayed the same now, this stayed the same, but I went from a plus 3 to a minus 1. So how do you get from 3 to minus 1? So to get from 3 to minus 1, we minus 4. So 3 minus 4, so 3 minus 4 will give me negative 1. So we minus 4. But remember when you shift left and right, remember this shift is a horizontal shift. If you have minus 4, it means you shifted 4 units to the right. So the graph, so we're going to say the graph was reflected in the x-axis and it shifted, or it was translated 4 units to the right. So remember, if you minus, it's to the right, and if you plus, it's to the left. Look at question 6 says, given f of x is equal to 2 times 3 to the x plus 1. So this is an exponential function, eh? Okay, 6.1 says, write down the coordinates of the y-intercept of f. So let's do that. So for my y-intercept, I let x be 0. So y is equal to 2 times 3 to the x plus 1. And now I'm going to make this x 0. So y is equal to 2 times 3 to the 0 plus 1. All in my calculator. And I get 3. So my y-intercept is 0 and 3. So this was for 1 mark only. Our next question is 6.2. And it says write down the equation of the asymptote of f. So an exponential function only has one asymptote. Eh? So 6.2, this over there is the asymptote. It's always y is equal to that number. It's a positive 1, so y is equal to 1. And that was for 2 marks. 6.3 says, draw a sketch of f showing clearly the asymptote and the intercepts with the axes. Eh? So this is our x-axis, that is our y-axis. First thing you draw in for your first mark is your asymptote. So my asymptote is y is equal to 1, so that's a positive. So I put my asymptote in, y is equal to 1. Then, do you see this positive 2 here in front? That positive 2 means that my exponential function is above the asymptote. So it's either that way or it's this way, but it's above. So if it's above, it means it doesn't have x-intercepts because it will never cut that line. So no x-intercepts. So what we can do is, we can do a table. You can do a quick table. You put your x values there, your y values there. You make your x's negative 1, 0, and 1, and you sub it in. So now let's write our function down. So now you will make your x negative 1. So if you make your x negative 1, then you get your y value to be, okay, I get that to be 5 over 3. So 5 over 3 or 1,67. 1,67. If you make your x 0, then you get this to be 3. And if you make your x 1, you get your y value to be 7. Okay, and then you just plot those points, eh? So now I'm going to plot this point, negative 1 and 1,67. So negative 1, 1,67, negative 1, then 0 and 3. So 0 and 3 somewhere there, and then 1 and 7 somewhere there. Okay, and then you just join the dots like that. That's your exponential. You can just make that 3, and you can put 1 point there, 1 and 7. And that's, let's mark. For the asymptote, they gave a mark. For the y-intercept, they gave a mark. And for the shape, the shape that's increasing like that, that was a mark. Okay, 6.4 says, write down the range of h if h of x is this over here. So h of x, let's write it down, is 2, 3x plus 1 minus 5. So they want to know what's the range of this. This is also an exponential function, eh? So what is the range? So if you had to draw this, this is the asymptote. Y is equal to negative 5. So somewhere here at the bottom, you would have y is equal to negative 5. Then because this is still a positive, this graph is above the asymptote. So this graph is going to go like this. But it doesn't matter how it looks like. It could also look like this. But the fact that it's above the asymptote means that the range is y is greater than the asymptote. So no equal sign with exponential, because this is an asymptote. No equal sign next to an asymptote. So y is greater than negative 5 because this over here is a positive And this positive means the function is above the asymptote. And that is 2 marks for the range. This question is question 7. So let's start. It says in the diagram below shows the graph of f of x, ax squared plus bx plus c, that's a parabola, and mx plus q, that's a straight line. It says d is negative 1 and 4, so d is negative 1 and 4, and f is 1 and 6, and they are the points of intersection of f and g. Okay, t and u, so t and u are the x-intercepts of the parabola. E is 0 and 6, and that is the y-intercept of the parabola. And s is the x-intercept of g, so s is the x-intercept of the straight line. VW is a straight line, this is a straight line drawn parallel to the y-axis. Okay, so that's parallel to that. The first question is 7.1. Write down the equation of the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry we normally get from the turning point. So we don't have the turning point because we don't have the equation of the parabola. So we need another way to work this out. Can you see here, grade 11th, that the y value and the y value of those 2 points are exactly the same? You must always remember that the axis of symmetry is always halfway between any 2 points with the same y value. So if the y value is 3 here and the y value is 3 here, then the axis of symmetry is the midpoint between these 2 points. So if the y value is negative 2 here and the y value is negative 2 here, then the axis of symmetry is the midpoint between these 2 points. So whenever the y value is the same, the axis of symmetry will be the midpoint where you find those 2 y values. So wherever you have the same y values, like here, same y value, the axis of symmetry will be in the middle here. But the way you find the midpoint is you only look at the x values. So we're looking for the x value. We're going to say midpoint says I'm going to take the 1x plus the other x and divide that by 2. So I'm going to do that. The x over here is 0 plus the x over there is 1, and I'm going to divide that by 2. So I get my x value. The x value here, the midpoint, that whole line over there, the x value will always be a half. So this line is called x is equal to a half, and that is the axis of symmetry. So that's how you get it. That's why it's 1 mark, it's inspection. Okay, our next question is 7.2. 7.2 says, for which values of x is f decreasing? We're going to move from left to right. So from here to here, up until the turning point, our parabola is increasing. And then from here to here, our parabola is decreasing. So our question asked, where is our function decreasing? So it's the blue part. So it's from here onwards till forever. So what's the x value there? Because it says for which values of x. So 7.2, where x is greater than the x value of the turning point, which is the axis of symmetry. So it is where x is greater than a half. And that's the answer there, and that's only for 1 mark. Okay, 7.3 says, calculate the average gradient of f between d and e. So average gradient is just gradient, the y minus the other y over x minus the other x between d and e. So let's look for d and e. D is this point and e is that point. So okay, I'm going to start with d. So the 1y, y is 4 minus 6. So it's that 4 minus that 6. Then negative 1 minus 0. So negative 1 minus 0. Put that in your calculator. And you will get 2 as your answer. So the average gradient between those 2 points is 2, and that is for 2 marks. So 1 for subbing and 1 for the answer. 7.4 says, determine the equation of G. Okay, so remember we said G is our straight line. So we need the equation of a straight line. This is 7.4. So the equation of a straight line is y is equal to mx plus c. So let's highlight our straight line. So this is our straight line. So this is our straight line. I need 2 points because I want to work out the gradient. D is on the straight line and F is on the straight line. Okay, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to say the gradient is equal to this y minus that y. So 6 minus 4 over this x minus that x. So 1 minus negative 1. And I get my answer to be 1. Okay, so the gradient is 1. So far I have y is equal to 1x plus c. To get c, I need to substitute a point. I can use any point. I'm going to use 1 and 6. So y is 6, x is 1 plus c is 6 minus 1, c is 5. So therefore the equation of the straight line is y is equal to 1x. Remember we worked out 1x plus 5. And that is the equation of the straight line. So let's see, how did they give you marks? Working out the gradient is a mark, subbing in a point is a mark, and then getting the equation of the straight line, that is a mark. Next we go to 7.5. 7.5 says show that f of x. So show that f of x is negative x squared plus x plus 6. So another way of asking that question is find the equation of the parabola. So okay, let's see if we can find the equation of the parabola. So far we only have this part that they gave us there, the standard form. So ax squared plus bx plus c. Now when you look at your parabola, when you look at this parabola, we don't have the x-intercepts. We can't use that formula because we don't have the x-intercepts. We also don't know what the turning point is. Normally, we need to know the turning point or the x-intercepts. But what I do see, I see the y-intercept. And this c over there represents the y-intercept. So I'm going to write that down. Y is equal to ax squared plus bx. And then this is 6. So plus 6. Okay. Then I'm going to sub in a point. So let's see if I sub in a point on the parabola. Let's sub in 1 and 6. So 1 and 6. So this becomes 6 is equal to a. This is now 1 squared plus b 1 plus 6. Okay, so I get 6. This is 1a. This is 1b plus 6. I get 0 to be equal to a plus b plus 6, and I bring the 6 over. They will cancel. So I'm stuck now. So they will cancel. So 0 is equal to a plus b. Okay, I'm going to call that equation number 1. Because I have an a and a b. I have 2 variables. Then I'm going to take this equation again and I'm subbing in another point. So I'm also going to sub in. Let's do it again. But now I'm subbing in negative 1 and 4. So now into this. So my y now is 4 is equal to a negative 1 squared plus b negative 1 plus 6. Let's see what we get here. This is a positive 1a negative b plus 6. And then let's see. I'm going to take everything over. So a minus b plus 6 minus 4, 0. So I have a minus b plus 2. And this I'm going to call this equation number 2. Okay, now I'm just going to sub the one into the other. So I think over here I'm going to make a my subject. So a, bring everything over. This is then b minus 2. This is equation number 3. And I'm just going to take this, a is equal to that, and sub it into equation number 1. So there I'm going to write 0 is equal to a plus b. 0 is equal to, but a is now b minus 2. So a is b minus 2. So b minus 2 plus b. So this gives me 2b and a 2 there. Take the 2 over. So I get divide by 2, divide by 2. I get my b to be 1. Okay. So now b is 1. I'm going to sub b is 1 into this equation over there. So 0 is equal to a plus b. 0 is equal to a plus 1 because b is 1. A is negative 1. So far I have my a to be negative 1. My b was a positive 1 and my c was the 6 that I subbed in at the beginning. That's c. So therefore the equation of the parabola is f of x is equal to negative x squared, so negative 1x squared, plus, this is a positive 1x, and then plus 6. And there you proved it, and that was for 4 marks. Let's see how you got marks here. So the first thing is, if you saw this 6 there for the c, that's a mark. Then you had to substitute both points, eh? So there you subbed and there you subbed. That's 1 mark for subbing both. Then the method that you use, simultaneous equations, you get a mark. And then for A and B, you will get a mark for working that out. And that's how you get 4 marks. Our next question is 7.6 and it says calculate the length of SU. S is the x-intercept of the straight line and U is the x-intercept of the parabola. Okay, I need to work that out first. So the straight line, my equation was y is equal to x plus 5. So to get the x-intercept, because I want this, I'm going to let y be 0. So this becomes 0 is equal to x plus 5. X is equal to negative 5. So I'm going to go right here. This s is negative 5. Then for u is the x-intercept of the parabola. So I write the parabola down. And I let y be 0. Okay. You can use the quadratic formula or you can change the signs and factorize. So plus, minus, minus, and then I'm going to factorize x and x, 3 and 2, a minus and a plus. So I get x to be either a positive 3 or a negative 2. So let's look. Here's the one x-intercept and there's the other one of the parabola. This one is definitely negative 2, so this one is 3. Okay, I worked that out. Now I need the length of SU. So the length of SU, is the biggest x minus the smallest x. So SU, biggest minus smallest. And I get that to be 8 units. Okay, so how did they give marks here? This was a 5-mark question, eh? So working out that x-intercept is a mark. Making that equal to 0, the factors, choosing the correct answer, and then for your final answer. That's how you get 5 marks for this question. Eh? Okay, next question, 7.7 says, determine the values of x for which f of x minus g of x is less than 0. So let's write that down. So where is f of x minus g of x less than 0? So another way of asking this question is where is f of x? Take this negative g of x over and just take it to that side. And that's the question. Where is the parabola? This means below because it's less than the straight line. Okay. So for that I'm looking, when you have two graphs with these inequality questions, you look for the points of intersection. And only the x values, the x values of the points of intersection. So let's highlight here. So that's a point of intersection and that is a point of intersection. So if you do a number line here on the side, the first x value here is negative 1 and the other x value of the point of intersection is 1. Because the parabola was first, I'm going to highlight on the parabola, always on the first graph. So let's go from here to here. So I go from left to right. Is the parabola above or below the straight line? Let me highlight the straight line in red. So there's the straight line. Is the parabola above or below? It is below. So before negative 1, it's below. Let's use another color. It's below. Then from negative 1 up until positive 1. Is it below or above the straight line? It is now above the straight line. And then after that second point of intersection, is it above or below? It's below the red line. So yeah, I'm going to say below. Now because they ask for below, I'm looking for my minuses. So my minuses are here, this side of negative 1 and that side of positive 1. So it is where x is less than negative 1, that's that side. Or it's on the right side of 1, where x is greater than 1. I don't put equal signs like that because the question, oh no, the question did have an equal sign. Okay, so let's go put our equal sign in here. So equal sign, equal sign. That means our answers will also have an equal sign like that. That's perfect. Okay, our last question is 7.8. And it says, calculate the maximum length of VW. Okay, so VW is this line over here. So they want the maximum length, For maximum length, you always look at the line and then you just look which graph is on top where you find this line. So you see that line is there. The parabola is on top. So here on top, that's the parabola. And here where W is, that's the straight line. So I'm going to write the maximum length of VW is always the top graph minus the bottom graph. So when you look at that line, V is on top. So that's the parabola. So the equation of the parabola, this was a negative, was this, minus the straight line in brackets, x plus 5. You just say parabola minus straight line. So let's remove the brackets. Let's remove the brackets, negative x squared plus x plus 6 minus x minus 5. Add the like terms, negative x squared, this and this will cancel, and then this and this will give me plus 1. Okay, so now I have an expression for the maximum length. So if you look at that expression, that is a sad face parabola. So to get the highest value, or the maximum of a parabola, so let's say maximum length, then you look at the highest y value. So the highest y value is the y value of the turning point. So to get the x value of the turning point, minus b over 2a, x is, there's no b here, so it's 0, over 2a, a is negative 1. And this whole thing just gives me 0. Then to get the y value, you sub this into the equation that was given. So negative 0 plus 1. And the answer is 1. So the turning point here is 0 and 1. And any minimum or maximum or lowest or highest refers to the highest y value or the y value of the turning point. So the answer to this question, the maximum length of VW is 1 unit. Or you can complete the square. You take this answer here, top minus bottom, and simplify and then complete the square. But doing this, completing the square is the same as finding the turning point of a parabola. So that's how you would answer that question, and that is for 21 marks.